Hello and welcome to Tuesday's edition of Cracking the Cryptic, and today we're going to be taking a look at some classic Sudoku. The puzzle on the screen is by somebody called Macrovius, which is a new name to me, and the puzzle is called Tyrannosaurus Rex, which takes quite a bit of imagination. I think this might be the head of the Tyrannosaurus, and maybe these are its arms. Maybe this is going down to its body, and is that its tail coming off the back? I don't know. Someone else will have to explain to me how this is a Tyrannosaurus Rex, but apparently it is. Now, the testing reports for this say it's a brilliant but difficult Sudoku. A bit like the one we did the other day by Philip Newman, which was called Tatooine Sunset. Now, I have been astonished to see how much online discussion there has been about that puzzle. And in fact, I'm going to be talking to you at the start of this video about a new technique, to me at least, which helps you at least start to conceptualize how to solve that puzzle without having to go down the line of 8 different swordfishes, which is the way I had to do it. But before we get into that, I just want to give a huge thank you to those of you who have already started to sponsor us on Kickstarter to create our book. Here we go. You can see we're doing quite well. We're not far off the sort of base level, which will allow us to make the book. And then there are loads of stretch goals in there as well, which will allow us to make an even better book. And that's obviously what we're hoping to do. We want to produce a book that's got quite a few pages of new puzzles and a new Sudoku hunt and things like that. And I think we might be able to do it with your help, which would be just absolutely terrific. The way the Kickstarter works is it runs for about another 30 days or so. I can't remember exactly how many days, but then it stops. So if we haven't met the targets by then, that's we can't do anything about it. So do have a look if you think you might be interested, or if you know somebody you think might be interested. Please do share it liberally on social media. And yeah, it's very exciting. There's even a list down here. You can see some of the setters who are supporting the book, and wouldn't it be amazing if we could get puzzles from all of these people into it? New puzzles indeed. So as well as, of course, some of the classics we've already seen on Cracking the Cryptic. Anyway, let's get back to Sudoku. Which one do I want to show you? Here we have Tatooine Sunset. Now, I've been pointed in the direction of a couple of things about this puzzle that are really rather phenomenal, but the one I want to talk about today was brought to my attention by Tom Collyer and Sam Cappleman-Lynes. Sam noticed that in this opening position you can use something called multi-sector locked sets in order to make a little bit of progress. Now, normally with these esoteric techniques, I sort of view them a bit with a pinch of salt, because they're not spottable by human beings in general. However, this one is quite elegant, and I would argue it is spottable by a human being, so I thought you might like to see it. The key is to notice that there is something of an alignment of the stars regarding the digits. My mouse isn't working. 1 second. Okay, it's working again now. So 9s, 2s and 7s. Now if we look at these 3 columns, you can see we've almost got perfect alignment of 9, 2s and 7s. Just this little 8 and not being a 2 sort of ruins it. But you can see that in these specific columns and rows we have very nearly a perfect set of 9 digits. And what Sam notices is that this allows you to use this technique on some of the other columns. So if we look at column 2, 5 and 8, there is something quite unusual about these columns in that they contain a sequence of digits here that don't correspond with the digits 2, 7 and 9 at all, but they are in very nice stable positions. They're not dotted around. You can see that there is clearly a pattern to these digits in these columns. So the question that we have to ask if we spot anything like this is, where do we put the digits 9, 2 and 7 in the grey columns? Well, let's think about that for a moment. How many 9s, 2s and 7s are there going to be in these 3 columns of the grid? Well, you don't have to be a genius to know there are going to be 9. So how many of those can we put in row 1? Well, we could put all 3. There's nothing stopping that. We can't put any. Oh no, we can put 1 in row 2 actually. You could put the 2 in there, look. So we can put 1 in there. I'm just going to highlight it in yellow just in one cell to indicate we can put 1 of the digits in. So we can have 3 in row 1, 1 in row 2, none in rows 3 and 4, none in rows 5 because there's already 2, 7, 9 in there, 3 in row 6, none in row 7, none in row 8, and a maximum of 2 in row 9 because there's already a 2 in the row, look, so we could fit a 7 and a 9 in. So now we can see that the maximum number of 9s, 2s and 7s that we could put in these 3 columns is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Well, that's exactly how many we need to put in those columns. In other words, we actually know ab initio on this puzzle that these 3 squares here and these 3 squares here have to be the digits 2, 7 and 9, which is really rather startling, and it's certainly not where I started with the puzzle. So I just thought you might like to see that. Now I'll put the link to Philip Newman's puzzle under today's puzzle as well, so you can play around with it. But there is actually another example of this right now as well on the digits 3, 4, 5 and 6. So you may like to take a stare at it from this position and see if you can spot that. It's pretty fascinating stuff. And yeah, as I say, it was new to me, so I thought some of you might like to see it. Now let's get back to Macrovius's puzzle. It shouldn't take me long to explain the rules today. Normal Sudoku rules apply. There, done it. The way to play, of course, click the link under the video. With that, I get to play. Let's get cracking. Right, we'll start with 1s, I think. Why not? 1s, 1s. Yeah, we'll definitely start with 1s. I can do all the 1s immediately. Well, so far this puzzle is nothing like as difficult as Tatooine Sunset, where I think it took me about, I don't know, 8 swordfishes to put a digit in the grid. Anyway, let's carry on. 2s, are they interesting? They lock a 2 into one of 2 cells there, look. That's it for 2s. 3s, how many 3s have we got in the grid? Not many. 3s are locked into one of those 2 cells. And one of these 2 cells. Already I start getting suspicious where you get these sort of offset pairs and boxes. It always seems to mean that there's something complicated hidden in the grid. 4s have got to be in one of those 2. There's no 4s at the top of the grid at all though, so that's probably going to be as far as we go with 4s. 5s. 5s and 2s look are locked into the same cells, same in box 6. So there's a 2-5 pair there. Immediately what I do when I see this, by the way, is I'm looking at these open squares to see whether I can map these down to something more digestible. You can see that 9 has got to be in one of those 2 cells now. In box 6, I can't see anything else though. Let's go back to 5s and make sure that we're not missing a trick. Yeah, we can put 5s into those 2 squares. Not seeing anything else. 6s give us a digit. These 6s combine. We get a 6 here. 6 in one of those 2. 6 in one of these 2. And there the trail runs cold. Let's go to 7s. 3s and 7s are mapped onto the same cells, look. So again, let's check the open positions. We know we need 2, 4, 6 and 8. So 6s we've already pencil marked. There's not enough 8s, not enough 2s, not enough 4s. Bobbins. 7 is locked into 2 positions in box 8 as well. Oh dear, we seem to be grinding to a bit of a halt. Look, 8s. 8s and 5s are locked into the same positions. So again, we'll tidy up the pencil marks. We'll have a look at the open cells. We need 2, 3 and 9. So we can get 3s pencil marked into the corner. 9's pencil marked into one of those 2 cells. Good. That's going to give us something. Oh, in fact, 9's are better than that. Sorry, misreading my own notation. These 9s actually lock the 9 into the corner of this box. Obviously, not the corner of the grid. Nobody puts 9s in the corner of the grid. 9 here. 9s are a bit like 1s, actually. They seem to be flowing around the grid. Yeah, they do. They float. Yeah, we get all of them. So 9s are also very productive. Okay, so we've had one pass through the numbers, and we have got a few pairs identified. And all the 1s and 9s done. Now we know these two squares now have got to be, what is it? 2 and 3, I think. So let's put that in. 2 is locked into one of 2 positions in the bottom row by this 2. Not quite. I thought we were going to find something there. That is interesting. It feels to me like there's something there on the 2s. It's not quite though. It's really close. Can I eliminate if I can eliminate a 2 from that position, I have got something useful. But I can. Look, 6s. 6s. Where does 6 go in this box? 6 has got to be in one of those 2 squares. We can remove 6 from here and put 6 in here. Now this is cool because this trail I was on when I was looking at 2s and trying to put them into the other rows of the grid. Look at row 4. Now sorry, let me highlight those ones. Now look at row 4 and ask where 2 can go. This 2 is ruled out of this square, and this 2 rules 2 out from this square. So 2 is locked into the same 2 columns of the grid. So if we look at row 9 and row 4, the 2s have to appear in the same positions, the same columns. So what do we know as a result of that? Well, we have an X-wing. So let's think about when we're looking at the finished grid what we're going to see. Now if we see a 2 here in the finished grid, in the finished solution, if we looked at it and there was a 2 there, we would know for certain there has to be a 2 there because there are only 2 positions for the 2s in row 4. So one possibility is that this slash of the X contains 2s at its tips. The only other position that could exist in the finished solution is that there was no 2 here, in which case there would have to be a 2 there in row 9, in which case this cell would have to be a 2 in row 4, and this slash of the X would contain the 2s. But critically, you can see that whichever way round that goes, there's always a 2 in one of these 2 cells, and there's always a 2 in one of these 2 cells, and that might allow us to find some logic, because that means there's no 2s in, well, we don't get anything there. Look, we already knew there was no 2s there, but we know there are no 2s there, no 2s here, which also we virtually knew. So this is perhaps a complete wild goose chase. No 2. So the cells that seem to be affected by this logic are cells where the 2s weren't otherwise eliminated were this cell and this cell only. Good grief. So let's focus on them and just see if it tells us anything. Well, it does a little bit in this box. Where does 2 go in this box if it can't go here and it can't go in the top row? At least we now know it's in row 2. And that does give us a digit, because now where does 2 go in box 2? So it's not completely futile. 2 must be in one of these 2 cells. Actually, no, it's quite good in row 7 as well. Because where does 2 now go in row 7? If we can't put 2 in the green cell, before the X-wing we didn't know the green cell didn't contain a 2. Now we know it definitely doesn't. Look, there's no 2 here, no 2 here. You can't have a 2 there, so that's a 2. 2 must be in one of those 2 cells. Remember, it can be in this cell because this is one of the X-wing cells. So we actually did We didn't do too badly there. And now we've got well, we've got the three rows that are still interesting to me here are this one, and this one, because they've obviously got restricted digits in very many of the same column positions. So I'm going to look at these in more detail. Let's have a look at this one. What do we need across there? We need 4, 5, 6, and 7. Now that one, that one is, well, it can't be 6. That's as good as we get for that one. That one can't be 6 either. Oh, so now where does 6 go in this row? Look, that's a naked single. That's got to be a 6. Or a hidden single, I should say. So 6 must be in one of those two cells. Okay, well, that's quite good, but it's not enough. Let's have a look at this row. We still need 2, 4, 5, and 8. So that can be 2, 4, or 8. This one can be 4, 5, or 8. This one can be, that's better, that can only be 4 or 8. So what I'm doing here is I'm trying to pick up whether there's a restriction on any digits in these rows, or a useful restriction, I suppose I should say. This one needs 2, 3, and 7 still, so that can be anything. This can be 3 or 7. So the digits that are a bit interesting in terms of alignment here to me are 4s and 5s. Now, can we get anything done in that regard? That is the question. The answer is, I don't know. I'm not spotting anything at the moment, I'm afraid. No, I'm not spotting anything. Let's have a look at this row then. Here we need 3, 5, and 8. So this can only be 3 or 5. This can only be 3 or 8. Ooh, so 8s are not far from aligning in a swordfish pattern. Can't see it though. 7s are not a million miles away from aligning in a swordfish pattern. Actually, ooh, how about we look at row 6? How about we look at row 6? There you go, that's a swordfish. Because we've got, if we look at, maybe I should get rid of the highlighting on the 2s now, because we've used that. So those 3 squares are where the 7 can go in row 3. If we look at row 6 carefully, only those 2 squares can contain a 7. If we look at row 9, only those 2 squares can contain a 7. So here, again, we've got this swordfish pattern going on, where we've locked the 7 into exactly the same columns of the grid in 3 different rows of the grid. Now, however we dispose these 7s around this pattern, there will always have to be exactly 1 in this column, exactly 1 in this column, and exactly 1 in this column. And this allows us to do exactly the same thing we just did with the X-wings. So we can eliminate 7s from, let's try and pick the cells that are actually going to matter here, because you can see several of them can't contain a 7 already. That one can't. Oh, this... yeah, okay, this is great. Look, because now where does the 7 go in row 1? If these green cells cannot contain a 7, and before the swordfish, we didn't know they couldn't contain a 7, but using the swordfish we do know, where does the 7 go in row 1 now? It can't go here because of the 7 there. It can only go in this cell. So this is a 7. Which, well, I can see it's going to give me a 7 here. And it's going to give me a 7 in one of those 2 cells. Now, does it do anything extra or not? So, we've restricted 7 in row 1. Ah, no, it gives us one more digit. It gives us a 6 here, look. Because now where does 6 go in row 1? It can't go there, it can't go there, and it can't go there. Previously it could have gone here, so now there's a 6 in this position. And all of a sudden row 1 has got much more interesting, hasn't it? So we've got 3, 4 and 5 to place in row 1. And... ah, come on, Simon, there must be something here. Well, there is. Yes, there is. There's a swordfish on 5s now, I think. Let me just get rid of... I'm going to get rid of the highlighting again. And let's look at 5s in row 1, obviously only in these 3 squares here. They're the only possibilities. Let's look at 5s in row 3. Again, same 3 columns of the grid, so it's looking good. So we just need to find one more row of the grid where the 5s are locked into exactly these 3 columns. Now, what about this one? That's no good because the 5 is offset here. What about this one? Well, actually this works because the 5 can only go in those 2 squares. So again, we've got a swordfish on 5s. We know, therefore, that the 5s in column 2 will have to appear in one of these 2 cells. The 5s in column 5 will have to appear in one of these 3 cells, and the 5s in column 8 will have to appear in one of these 3 cells. And you can prove this to yourself if you don't believe me. Try a 5 somewhere else. And if you try a 5 anywhere else in these columns, let's make that a 5, just for the sake of exposition. Well, now the problem is that in these 3 rows of the grid, there are only 2 columns to put the 5s into. Now, how many 5s can you put into 2 different columns of a Sudoku? The answer is 2. You cannot put 3 in, otherwise you will repeat one of them. And this is why we know this couldn't be a 5. Now, this not being a 5 is absolutely massive, because now, by eliminating 5s down these cells and these cells, you can, in fact, it doesn't. In fact, look, there's a 5 there. So, in terms of which cell matters here, it is literally, well, that cell might matter. That can't be a 5 either. Let's look at this cell first. So this can't be. It can be 3, 4. Or 8 only. It cannot be 5 because of the swordfish. But this is the interesting cell. This can't be 5, so it must be 8. That gives us a 5 here. And we've got a 3 here, 5 here, a 2 here. This 2 and 3 are nice. Look, that gives us a 5. And that gives us, in fact, that gives us the whole of... yeah, it does. It gives us the whole of this column. That gives us a 4 here. This 5 gives us the 8 here, which gives us the 2 here. I think we may just have smashed through the puzzle here. Let's see, 7. 3. So 4, 5 pair there. That square's got to be a 7 therefore to complete that. That can't be 7, so we've got a 4, 5 pair over here. We need 3 and 5 into those squares, which we can do because of the 3 there. That gives us the 2 here. These squares have got to be 7 and 8. Again, we can do it. That square should be a 7, I think. These squares have got to be 4 and 8, which we can do. This row needs a 3 and a 6. Yeah, 3 and a 6, which we can't do. This is 4 and 5, which we can do. 5 and 4 goes like that, look. These two squares are 3 and 4. Yes, we can do that now. That gives us the 3 and the 6, which means we should be able to write the 8 into that square. Get rid of the 8 from here. This is a 3, 4, 5 triple. That's not 4 anymore because of the row. In fact, though, the 4 is pointing at that one. That would have been easier to see, wouldn't it? 3, 4, 5. And if I've not made a mistake, I should be able to put a 6 in there. Click check. There you go. Beautiful puzzle. Macrovius. Great debut. Great debut, my friend. I hope you enjoyed that. A couple of things to think about today. And we'll be back later with another edition of Cracking the Cryptic.